We're just going to give another minute for people to join, but here's a poll question we would love for you to answer here. Share an innovative way your city has activated parks, green spaces, and/or natural areas. Great. So I just want to welcome everyone here today. Thank you for joining our fourth Community of Practice session. As we are about to begin, I invite you to include your name, city, and pronouns. This will be great for our breakout discussions so that we're able to just interact with everyone. If we could just go to the slides. So this is a poll question we have here. I think as folks are entering, you just need to put the poll link in the chat box one more time. We're just asking you to share an innovative way your city has activated parks, green spaces, and/or natural areas. And we could go back to the full screen. Sports fields, soon after opening up new park areas, a summer concert series and reintroducing them. I'm sure folks are really eager for that during the summertime as well. I think if we could scroll down a bit, open streets, food truck events, concerts again, a mobile recreation program. I definitely want to hear more about that. Creating staffed activities in downtown parks that appeal to houseless people as well as downtown workers. Collaboration, resource distribution, entertainment. Butterfly gardens, I would love to see a photo of that. That's a great point for inspiration. And of course, volunteer events. Great. Please feel free to continue to fill in this poll. We would love to capture what you are doing. But for now, we could go back to the slides. In the next slide, we have our agenda for today. The first half of today's workshop will include a moderated panel with Rhonda Chapman, TPL's Director of Equity. She will lead us through a conversation with 3 cities, Des Moines, Iowa, Toledo, Ohio, and Washington, D.C. The second half will be active participation, where we will split folks into breakout groups for facilitated discussions. During these groups, we will discuss what your city could do to increase social access and the sense of belonging in parks, green spaces, and natural areas. Before I hand it off to Rhonda, I just want to walk through a few slides. In this next one, I just want to give a quick recap of what we heard in our last session. Over and over again, as folks were discussing how to meet the community where they are, we heard how to use parks as a common ground for community values and challenges, ways to create multiple touch points with community groups and members, and stories on how to show, not tell, your commitment to the community. In the next slide, for building out networks, we were hearing the need to map out stakeholders, institutionalize stakeholder input and feedback, and lastly, providing capacity building and support for community groups and members. Lastly, in Invest in Local Leaders, we heard about how you are integrating local leaders into your processes, including unofficial community leaders, the need to dedicate staff, funds, and resources to local representatives, and lastly, different ways and approaches to socialize city practices. So with that, I will take a pause and just in the next slide, frame up for the group the progression that we are at today. In past sessions, we've really focused on physical access as well as community engagement tactics. And for today's topic, we really want to better understand how you approach social access and the different activities and programs that go into increasing a sense of belonging in your community. So with that, I would love to hand it over to Rhonda and to open our speaker panel today.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. I hope you are excited for our virtual city tour today. I know many of you have been here before. For me, this is my first, so I feel like it's an honor and a privilege. We are going to look beyond the 10-minute access to parks and discuss instead what social access means, or perhaps doesn't mean. Our guests today are going to share the strategies and approaches they've applied towards increasing a sense of belonging in their respective parks. So first, we're going to hear from Colby Fangman and Amari Nagusi from Des Moines Parks and Rec. That's in Iowa, for those of us who still struggle with our geography. Colby is an Iowa native and has worked in the public sector for nearly the entirety of his professional career. At the city of Des Moines, Colby is a park planner and a capital construction project manager. In addition to park planning, design, and construction management, Colby provides departmental coordination and leadership over all things GIS, trail development, capital grant writing, green infrastructure, and natural resources and conservation and restoration. I'm tired, Colby. Woo! Colby is an avid paddler and a cyclist, but during this time of year, we are more likely to find him hiking through the woodland trails while enjoying Iowa's spring ephemeral wildflowers. Welcome, Colby. Thank you for being here. Amari is a native of Southfield, Michigan, and prior to joining the crew at Des Moines Park and Rec, he is currently serving, prior to joining the Des Moines Park and Rec as the program coordinator and supervisor of Equitable Services, he spent 8 years with Wayne County Parks in Michigan as the operations manager of the Family Aquatic Center in Chandler Park, and 5 years with the Maury organization in Wildwood, New Jersey as an area manager. Amari's favorite thing to do outdoors is visit and explore cities, state, and national parks and interact with urban landscapes. Welcome, sir. I'm so glad you are here. So I'm really excited for the two of you to share your insights with us. And so I want to begin with a question that's pretty straightforward, and that is for you all to please share how the city of Des Moines has increased the sense of belonging in parks by targeting recreational programming in under-resourced neighborhoods. Who'd like to kick it off? Colby?
Yep, I'll be kicking it off here. Get our presentation going here. Is everyone seeing that up on screen?
Yep.
All right. So thank you for the introduction and question, Rhonda. Really, we're going to rewind back to access. Access can mean a lot of things. And it's in speaking to your question. Access can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Our presentation looks at access in 3 ways. 1, geospatial access, as in location and proximity. 2, access as a way or means of approach, like a doorway or a threshold, thinking about the neighborhood. And 3, access as in accessible, or the state or quality of being approachable. That's where our programming really comes in. The key focus of this slide is geospatial, or where do we want to increase access and why. Investing in equity is a key goal of our department's comprehensive plan. So that's a driving factor here. This series of 5 unique maps was produced by 3 independent organizations, is used to inform and justify our equity-focused work. Despite utilizing different data sets and theming to explore equity issues, these maps consistently identify the area circled in a red dash circle as a focus area for investment. Please note there is a bend in the Des Moines River aligning with the right side of the red dash circle. That'll help orient you on the next slide. So we'll just keep moving right into it. Here we're going to touch on a couple of related development projects which are located within the focused investment area. Again, note the bend in the river indicating that we have zoomed in. I'll highlight that for you here. Shown as a dark blue solid or dashed line is the Central Place Levee Trail project, which will provide multiple neighborhoods first-time access to the 600-plus mile Central Iowa Trail Network. It includes approximately 4 miles of multi-use trail development, which provides neighborhood access spurs, which will connect people, facilities, and landmarks. This is an estimated $4 million investment. When it comes to trails, we know the saying, if you build it, they will come, is very apt. And to elaborate, we've actually found that the closer it is to home, the more and more it'll come. So constructing close to this investment area is really important. The second development project, identified in orange on the map, and with project imagery on the right, is the Northside Community Recreation Center. This is a wholly new facility estimated at $18 million to construct, which will replace an aging YMCA facility. Both of these projects included robust public input processes to ensure we were explicitly providing the facilities that these neighborhoods not only need, but desire. The extensive public process and responsiveness to it speaks to one of our ways or means of approach to access this part of the community. We expect to have both projects implemented by 2026. Next, Amar will discuss equitable programming we are increasing in this focused geography. Take it away, Amar.
Yes, thank you, Colby. Our department places a high value on equity, diversity, and inclusion. With initiatives like our Youth Sports Recreational Scholarship Program, which provides students at Des Moines Public Schools who are on free and reduced lunch, youth sports registrations for $5. Our Every Kid Gets a Ball program, where every kid who participates in these youth sports gets the ball to take home and keep, and our new Equitable Services Division, where we explore equitable use of park spaces and services. For the past 12 years, our director, Ben Page, has led fundraising efforts to host free spring, summer, and fall programming at Evelyn K. Davis Park. This park, which is located right in the center of our area for equity investment, and through this, we have observed a shift in not only the activity in the park, but also the neighborhood park ownership, which has also brought significant investments into the park. By taking away some of the nefarious things that happen in the park and bringing in positive activity, we were able to see this park grow and blossom and turn into a hub of neighborhood activity, which is something that we didn't see before. So seeing this immense value that this style of programming has brought to our community, to this community specifically, our city council, city manager, and other city officials made it a priority that we not only continue these efforts at Evelyn K. Davis Park, but expand them to other parts of the city, including target areas of equity investment. So this pictures on the map to the left. 3 of the 5 new summer programs that are going in are in this area. So as you can see, these are still areas of need. Also, 2 programs are going to be outside this area, but also still, once again, areas of need. And as we transition to the next slide, we see trust for public land data. As I'm pretty sure we've all seen this, the yellow area around is the people within a 10-minute walk. These are the demographics of Evelyn K. Davis Park, where we started this programming. And as you take a look and you see low-income households to middle and high-income households are outnumbered almost 3 to 1. We also see a significant amount of diversity in this area. So what we did was we used this data to look for other areas of our city that reflected the same thing. And what we found a lot of areas of the city that reflected this, and there was a need for this kind of programming. So we wanted to embrace the economic and ethnic diversity in our city through efforts like door knocking, neighborhood association meetings, community forums. We were able to gauge the interest of the community, figure out what kind of recreation programs they want, and put them into place to spur activity in our parks. We started with our summer camp program. Our summer camp program registration opened up on March 1st at 4 locations. By March 10th, we had 1 location that was completely full. By March 15th, every spot, all 250 spots in our program were full. And we have a waiting list of over 150 kids. So this speaks volumes as to the need for free equity-based programs in these targeted areas. And it's just going to help us increase our efforts as we move forward with our equity-based initiatives. TPL metrics have been integrated into our planning efforts for both our construction and programmatic investments. Strategically aligning our capital construction and programmatic strategies results in a holistic approach to providing equity access to parks, trails, and programming. These efforts achieve our comprehensive plan's goal of equity, attraction, innovation, and parks as the heart of our community. Thank you for listening to our slides. I'm going to turn it back over to Rhonda. I know there were some questions that popped up in the chat. We'd be happy to discuss any of and all of our programming with you guys. So thank you for your time.
Woo! Thank you. Y'all make a sister want to change locations. This is really, really inspiring, although I do love my home city of DC. I think in terms of questions that are popping up in the chat, we can take those on at the end. Right now, we kind of want to have an opportunity to introduce everybody that's here, and then we can figure out the rigor room when we get together again in just a moment. And we still have more to hear from you too. So drink some water, take a few breaths, because there's so much more to come. So now we're going to hear from Ashley Smith. Ashley is with Metro Parks Toledo. She started at Metro Parks in May of 2013 as a summer camp seasonal employee and is currently the manager of public programs. She is a real life Leslie Knope, shout out to Parks and Rec TV show in Toledo. She is proud to be so directly involved in the revitalization of the city. Ashley grew up in the Oak Openings region and is still calling it her home. She has 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, and she loves to take her family mountain biking, paddling, hiking, camping. Ashley, welcome. So glad that you were able to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I'm interested in the large array of programming to connect communities with green spaces and the outdoors. And I would love if you could share with us Metro Park Toledo's approach to increasing and diversifying programming to natural spaces and outdoor activities. What are y'all doing in Toledo?
Yeah, so let me share here real quick. Make sure we can get that up. Everybody see that okay?
Looking good.
All right. So yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the short answer of that is just meeting people where they are. Referencing the data of 81% of Toledo residents live within a 10-minute walk of a park, which is above the Park Square average of 75%. Our parks are a little bit different in that we really focus on the natural aspect. So we all know that science says nature has a positive impact on health, mental, physical, community health, which is why we adhere to our 80-20 rule of park development. So less than 20% of our parks are allowed to be developed, and this even includes trails or mowed lawns. So in 2020, at the height of the pandemic, we opened 3 new parks. One is in downtown Toledo and one is in North Toledo, and that completed our goal of having a metro park within 5 miles of every resident in Lucas County. So although I was not personally part of any of the research and data collection, I assure you there were a lot of community meetings and planning sessions to make sure the parks are fitting what the residents need, but also want, just like what they were saying. But really, after the parks opened, we saw and heard that they weren't necessarily being used by our neighbors. There's no amount of planning that will really account for that. A lot of groups just didn't feel welcome. And I think a big part of that reason is our staff does not reflect the demographics of Lucas County. So of our 212 staff, we are 93% white. Building that kind of trust takes time. It takes the meeting people where they are. So diversifying staff at every level will take time, strategy, and commitment. So what can we do in the meantime? It's going to look different for each demographic, community group, neighborhood, and even look different for each individual person. So we are knocking on doors. We're partnering with groups to help meet basic human needs like hunger, safety, shelter, getting kids access to winter coats, hats, gloves. We're partnering with groups that already work with the targeted community groups to bring them that free programming. And we're providing free transportation to the parks too. But really, more importantly, we're bringing the parks to them. So I know the question was, how are we utilizing and bringing people into our green spaces, but we're really meeting people where they are. So our mobile, I saw the idea for the mobile recreation program. That's what we have. So our mobile programs go to schools. They're going to community festivals, even to neighborhood street parties to bring people kayaking, mountain biking, rock climbing, but also just their first campfire cooked s'more, birding, bird watching, or just simply sitting in nature. We're inviting people to get outside themselves wherever they are and whatever that means for them. We found that our in-park programming was really good at reaching our regulars, but regardless of how we tried to target our programming to our neighbors, they didn't want to have anything to do with it. No problem, we will come to you. We're working with existing audiences and events to bring these fun opportunities, and whether or not they're actually trying anything new for the first time, their grandkids are, and their friends are, and most importantly, we're creating relationships. We're showing the community that we're able to keep them physically safe at our programs like tree climbing, archery, fire building, but we also have a keen sense of everyone's emotional safety. And for some like these kayakers in our mobile pool that you see, get outside yourself means coming off their ventilator and out of their wheelchair and into a kayak for the very first time. It's pretty intense. For others, it might mean facing a fear and not only riding a bike with two wheels for the first time, but then also charging at a ramp that seemed impossible only 20 minutes ago. But really, maybe it's as simple as going for a walk, meeting a friend for coffee, or even just stepping outside of your door to your house. So while some of these outreach programs are not taking place in green spaces or natural areas, it's really getting them one step closer and developing those relationships.
Wow, I really love that. And I particularly appreciate how getting outside is undefined. You know, the approach that you are taking to not being so prescriptive about it is really, really vital. So thank you so much, Ashley. I know we'll be coming back to you too.
Great.
So, gosh, now this is feeling a little bit personal to me because again, it's DC and this is a really small and beautifully connected community. But lastly, we're really thrilled to also have Miss Akima Price join us today. Akima is a very creative thinker and doer who links people, places, and programs with stressed, underserved communities. A DC native, Akima is nationally respected thought leader in the intersection of social and environmental issues and the relationship between nature and community well-being. Her innovative programming strategies feature nature as a powerful medium to connect youth and adults and families in meaningful, positive experiences that affect the way they feel about themselves, their communities, and their park. From her early career experiences as a National Park Service interpretation ranger at Lake Mead National Recreation Area in Boulder City, Nevada, to working with national and environmental social service organizations, Akima has been able to cultivate over 25 years of experience in the cutting edge best practices in trauma-informed environmentalism. Akima most recently co-founded the Friends of Anacostia Park and is building out a framework that innovates meaningful ways to use park experiences to address mental, physical, and social wellness in marginalized communities. Akima, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Rhonda.
Really glad
that
you're
is
here.
quite personal. Rhonda and I actually used to come across the hall from each other. Yeah, I had to throw that out there, Rhonda. So.
Hey, I'm proud. You know, I'm all about proximity to greatness, so I'll take it.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. For the opening.
Totally. So one of the things I wanted to be direct with this question is, part of the work that you're leading is as a member of the Anacostia Park and Community Collaborative. And they are in the process of building a diverse network of partners, including the parks, the people, the environmental groups, social service organizations. I'll even go far enough to say the city, all this hub bringing everybody together to empower the communities in DC. And so I'm curious how building the partnerships increase that sense of belonging and transformed Anacostia Park to better serve local residents and community groups. And just a quick caveat, I had a meeting with one of the team from TPL. We met there yesterday morning and walked along the park. And I just have to say, for those of you who have not had an opportunity to visit Washington, D.C., it behooves you to come to the Anacostia Park before you leave. So I just had to do that shout out there. Akima, take it away.
Yes, thank you, thank you. The way we're able to do it is by that, that blended group of people. Like one of my favorite quotes is like, the person who loves their idea of community will destroy community, while those who love those around them will build community. And so it's like, having people who traditionally haven't held hands together, holding hands and doing this work, because, when we zoom out of the fact that this is a national park and this is a green space and it's about there's climate change happening, all this, we still have to look at this community outside of this park, which are strongly marginalized communities. Just to give you context for those of you who are not in DC, the Capitol is kind of represented here. And this park, I think you can see me, this park over here is Anacostia Park, but the community we're referencing, and if you look at these visuals over here, you'll see where the river is. It's these communities over here. And that's at one point was technically Ward 7 and 8. They've kind of changed the ward barriers, which is another conversation. But the true meaning of Ward 7 and 8 has traditionally meant Southeast and Northeast Washington, D.C., where if you hear about, crime and just stress situations, a lot of times, not saying they're not happening in other places, but they do tend to concentrate east of the river because you've got these higher obesity rates, you've got the lowest DC household income, and the highest percentage of people living in poverty. And so that compounded by the natural environment of like public housing setups and so forth, you do have these stressed communities. And so we looked at how do we do this through a trauma-informed lens where, people don't have to come out of their lanes, like you can still be a landscape architect, right? But at the end of the day, we're humans. And so when we frame this and look at, because you can't avoid seeing this stuff on the news, even for where you are in your cities. Like youth are dying at alarming rates at gun violence. So safety, kind of lives at the root of this trauma-informed care. And it's, again, not just about the kids, but there's also this large body of evidence that we all know on this call of how powerful parks and nature and just outdoor experiences can be. So we're trying to kind of capitalize on that through a lot of what we've been doing. And so I show up at APAC through my connection of just years of work on this river, but most recently as the co-founder of the Friends of Anacostia Park. And so, this Friends group was established through the National Park Foundation like they traditionally do for federal land, but we kind of have a different take because we can't look to those stressed residents to help us fundraise for federal land. Like it just doesn't make sense, right? And so our framework is really around, one, we definitely have to respect the infrastructure needs to keep the park nice, to keep the park safe, to raise that financial capital. But we're also looking at the value of human and social capital of marginalized communities because they are content experts, when it comes to certain things, especially around, relatable engagement in parks as well. And so the other piece to this is too, how the park is actually acting as a clinic naturally without us even being involved. There are people walking, there are people wiping their cars down. That's mental health, right? And so we started looking at these and some of the stories we were collecting from people who were already using the bike path. This woman got off her diabetes medicine, which extends her life. And she's a grandmother. So what that means, right? So that park is just so many things and so many opportunities. Also framing it through trauma-informed care means we have to look at, around the needs of, that's the value of that partnership with the social service and justice groups, because those are the people that have their eyes on whether their needs are met. So they're coming to the park fed, or they're coming to the park from a sheltered place where they have a home and also employment. And so that's another angle we want to show up at, because green jobs, have been out there for a while, but we're also kind of redefining green jobs to not always be about picking up trash or cleaning up waste. We have capitalized on people like, for example, Miss Phyllis, who's come up through our system. She's a 25 years clean, but she will talk to anybody. She's lived in a lot of these stressed communities, and she has a genuine joy for life that she brings when she works in the park, right? And so she's able to help us also as we do this work. This thing you see over in the corners, this cross section we use, we talk about environment, not just being physical, but being social as well. And so you've got the social challenges and the social assets, the physical issues and the physical challenges and the physical assets. And we started looking at these things and how do we bring these things together? Like, so if we know that drugs are a problem in the community, how can we use playgrounds for drugs? don't go there. But that's just a quick kind of idea. And not all these things match up and give you the perfect answer, but it's first getting these things, like being open about what these real problems are, right? We can't pretend like it's just a perfect day to skip in the park while you got gun violence and a lot of, police sirens and so forth in the background. So that's how we frame this. Those pictures at the top kind of speak to our values as well. Those, giving children a place to be children, because within those stressed communities, you got 7-year-olds raising their brothers and sisters. Kids now are reportedly stressed. I mean, they'd say they were stressed before, like they're legitimately stressed like us, right? And so, looking at meditation and using the park for some of those obvious ways, and then also being intentional whenever we do things. So we take family portraits at all of our events because a lot of our families don't have family portraits. And these are also very meaningful experiences that they may or may not be able to have again together, because who knows what their situation is. Anyway, so we do this, going back to that, the value of that mixed network. This is the network, a partner network of the Friends of Anacostia Park, which happens to include APAC. And some of these same partners live in all of these different networks. But just to give you the framework also of how we look at our partnerships, like we're honest about this. Like some people are going to be transactional. We just need something from each other on this occasion. But ultimately, we're looking at and trying to build trusted, respectful relationships. And so before COVID, we had all this stuff in line. We were about to kill the game, and then COVID came. And so we had to look at this too and be realistic about who's ready to move now, because some people, it's going to take another year or so for them to get themselves out of whatever that was. But right now, these are just some samples of some of our partners. Again, I broke it down into community partners and environmental partners. It takes both. So like we've got the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants, who we just met with last week, that we're going to move in. They've got dollars for court mandated mental health that has to happen. We're going to start looking at how court mandated mental health can be a park hike. So getting these therapists in to use our parks. We've got, down here on our environmental partners, some of those obvious things like the Anacostia Watershed Society, who is amazing if you get a chance. They do boat tours, and they allow us to be on their boat and not have to always be talking about the river or anything like that. We've had teachers do teacher interventions with their coworkers on boats, right? So we're just looking at a variety of ways these things can happen. And so the way we box these or bucket these would be like social well-being, spiritual health, mental health, and physical health. And so these are, again, some of those issues. Based on some of those issues, we recognize what were some tangible actions in the park that could help. So family reunification circles, restorative justice circles. Restorative justice, if you don't know about restorative justice or restorative justice circles, Google it. Incredible times where people are making amends with families that they have impacted through crime. And so anyway, there's a variety of things that we do. Up at the top, we've got the National Reentry Network. That's one of our partners. We kind of got together and created a table game with them where when they're in our park, they're making nature greeting cards. So you can go make a free nature greeting card. You can keep it for yourself, or they accept them as donations and send them to people who are incarcerated who do not have access to nature, because they now are advocating for nature as something that even if you can't physically touch it, there's research now that proves that it actually still impacts the mental health of people who are incarcerated. And further down, we've got one of our partners, JHP and Women Like Us. They do human development workshops in our park, not even talking about trees and grass, but if a bird flies by or something crazy happens, it gets weaved in as teachable moments. But these ladies appreciate being outdoors, especially after COVID. So we're looking at a variety of ways to use the park, Rhonda, and we're still working. We got a lot of things cooking up, but we want to kind of push the envelope on what outdoor experiences, like what quantifies an outdoor experience, because it's not just kayaking and hiking anymore. It's by any means necessary.
Absolutely. That is so rich, so incredibly rich. And I know that we only have about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to go back to Toledo and to Des Moines to ask each of you one more question. And then hopefully we can come back to Akima in DC and ask another question before we go and transition into our breakout sessions. So I'm doing my best to monitor time because I'd rather just have full-fledged conversations with each of you for the next 16 hours. Unfortunately, I cannot. So Colby and Amar, again, representing Des Moines in this context, can you describe the before and after of the equitable framework and target programming, and specifically the impact on the surrounding community? So in other words, Des Moines didn't start out this way. right? There was
Right.
there was an impetus, there was a catalyst, there was a reason why you all had to bring out the equity services and programming. So can you talk about the before and after?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll take this one. So when we start talking about the before, we start talking about just the negative connotation on parks, the parks themselves. Some of the parks in our urban areas, they become hubs for nefarious activity. So what we were able to do is go into these parks with programming and just kind of create more things. We did evening programming. When we knocked on all our neighbors' doors and say, hey, what do you guys want to see in the park? And that's kind of where it started. Just asking our neighbors, what do you want to see in the park? What do you want to see happen in this park, in this area? They wanted to see evening programming. They wanted adult programming. So we did that. We were able to program the park 5 weeknights out of the week. We left the weekend for the people, but we were able to program 5 weeknights out of the week. And what it is I always say this: positive activity removes negative activity. And so we saw that over the last couple of years, we saw a significant amount of buy-in from the neighborhood. We saw our park usage go up, the rentals go up, and we've hosted weddings in the park. We had a elementary school graduation at Evelyn Davis Park. And so through that, we've also seen significant investment go in. We've added a futsal court. We've added a new playground structure. We've added a new basketball court lights and a new basketball court coming next year. And we've also seen the neighborhood around it. We've seen companies come in and do a cleanup where the houses around and the neighborhood around our city. I mean, this park just kind of got a boost from the park usage. So you saw people planting flowers, people taking care of their grass, and what that has done is it's resonated through the community to just really uplift this community that we have around the park. And that's why we felt it was important that with our equity-based initiatives going into other parks, we want to do the same thing for some of these other neighborhoods as well. Because one thing that we say is when a neighborhood is underserved, the community around it suffers. But when we start to put programs in, when we start to bring recreation programs in, we see the community blossom and develop like a flower.
I love that. That's just true love and light, right? Sending love and light. And all it can do is radiate. All it can do is grow and blossom. So I really appreciate that so much. Ashley, I've got a question for you too. I hope you didn't think you were off the hook. So you touched on this a little bit, but I want you to bring it back.
Sure.
When we were talking about the work that was happening in Toledo and the shifts that needed to take place internally in terms of the parks and recreation mission and staff to meaningfully change in the communities that you work with. You talked a little bit about the employment and the reflection of the community, but can you talk about that process of making that shift? In other words, taking a moment to say, you know what, y'all, something is not working here. We need to make an adjustment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've been working for Metro Parks for the past 9 years, and from what I've seen, the idea, and I don't think there was really a shift. There was always a level of priority, but I think it's just been like a deepening of commitment. Some people have come in that are new, bringing new ideas, being open to those new ideas, listening, trying things, having successes, but definitely having failures, and then just learning from all that again, and just being open to the risk that it takes to put yourself out there, to show up at these community events, to come into a space that you might not necessarily be welcomed, and then just be vulnerable and say, like, this is who we are. We want you to feel welcome. So how can we make that happen? And for each group, it's so different. We can't use just one model and kind of blanket statement and use that model on every single group or every individual. So it's all so different. And I think all it was, hey, this isn't working, so let's try this. Okay, that's not working as well. Okay, let's try this. And just shifting and adjusting, because this work really is never complete, right? So I think it's just knowing that it's not complete and just really kind of buckling in and setting programming loose, because Amar, we know that's where it really gets done, right? Is making those relationships and watching that person play on or near the water for the first time ever, you know, or whatever it might be. Again, it comes down to each individual and what getting outside yourself means to each individual. So it's just those baby steps, and just knowing that we're a little bit further along in that baby steps process than we were before. So
thank you, Ashley. I know you know, when I was listening to, I was thinking about that, first of all, that piece about being vulnerable, and then that important piece about taking risk. If we don't take risks, we really won't have much in the way of rewards. We're not going to be able to move the needle in the direction that we're striving to. So I really appreciate that you all are able to recognize that as a need and to let the programming run wild. I think, however you're able to do that in a safe and legal way, as opposed to some of the things that can get a little rampant. I love it. I love it so much. Akima, we've got about, I think, maybe 3 to 4 minutes left, and I want you to close out this part of the discussion with us, if you don't mind. One of the things that's really exciting as we look at this time of, you know, everybody living in this pandemic, and we've been hearing a lot of stories about the great resignations, and folks are reevaluating where they are and they're looking for new forms of work. And then we've got folks that stay looking for forms of work and are not being able to obtain access to them. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about investing in local leaders. I think you touched on, I want to say Miss Wilson. Apologies, I forgot her name.
Phyllis, Miss Phyllis.
Miss Phyllis. Okay, I got the S.
Yeah, you did.
How we're able to invest in the local leaders. I want to hear you expand more on that through different types of employment opportunities, because I think I don't think she's the only one. I don't think she's an exception to the rule.
No, right. And so one of the benefits I think of, so we got to look at this too, like career wise, like some of these things are dated, small, like 6 month, 5 month, 4 week, smaller things, because sometimes that's the way it comes, like if it's a smaller grant just for capacity. So part of that is just building the capacity of people. But let me go back even one step further, is partnering with some of these social service organizations and justice organizations who already have workforce development programs. So we're kind of coming into somebody who, if they don't show up on time, is working with them, or if they don't have, their housing is a challenge, they're working with them on that, right? So we're not pushing them away when they don't come perfect, right? We bring them on with certain expectations too, like some of these are 20-hour-a-week gigs, because that's what some people can handle, because they have to have another job. So there's having that flexibility first in the door of just the context of the opportunities, right? But being conscious, because what we're doing now is we're saying, how do we grow this into something where somebody will hire Miss Phyllis outside of us, because we may never be able to pay her over a certain amount, or, you know, exposing her to DOEE and these other groups who, if they get to that same level of thinking, they take some of their jobs and make them more accessible. Like, for example, the Park Service. For some of our people will never be able to work for the Park Service. They don't have a driver's license. They don't want a driver's license. They can't pass a certain type of clearance. You know, we definitely look at certain levels of clearances, but if some people have had low-level crimes, there's no reason why they shouldn't still be able to be employable and get some stuff on their resume and build up their skill set. And so the other side of this too is, as we match up the jobs, like again, grounds, there are some people who take incredible pride and love to keep that park clean, right? Whereas some people, they work with us and they sit closer by the playground and just keep eyes on the kids. But that's still a job where we need them, which actually brings its own kind of weird thing to it too, because sometimes I've had this one girl, she was from this reentry program, and so this is another beautiful part of this. Her job was working in the park on Saturdays, and she had 2 daughters, and she had just got home, and we were like, hey, you can bring your daughters to work. And she was like, what? Right? Because they were older and they didn't need as much attention. And part of her job at that time was to just hang with her kids because there wasn't a lot going on. And she couldn't understand how that was worked. But I was telling her, you're modeling motherhood and family right now. And that's what our bigger goal is. So that is your job today, right? So it's this weird place too, where some of these jobs, because of that innovation, it doesn't even feel like a job, but we still have to keep it tight. Like there's job descriptions, there's accountability, so forth and so on. But it's definitely not a 4-minute answer, Rhonda. I did my best.
Hey, no, that's amazing. I mean, there's an amazing synergy coming from all of you. So we've got love and light, vulnerability. We have to open our minds. We have to take a risk, right? We just have to allow ourselves to have a more radical imagination when we're trying to solve some of these conditions and these problems. So let's just do that, right? So I'm so excited to hear from all of you. I know I need to stop talking and hand it back over to Christina. So I'm going to do that. For this moment, I just want to say thank you. I bow to each and every one of you. I hope to see you all again, and maybe I'll swing through your city sometime on this TPL journey of mine. So thank you so much, Christina. I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you all so much. I'm actually going to take a pause. We won't go back to the slides. For folks in the room, we will all go into the breakout groups. And for Malik, if you could set the timer to 38 minutes, sorry to be so specific, he can just open up the groups and you'll meet a TPL facilitator there. Thank you.
Am I in a group? Yes, this is a group.
I'm sorry, I need to push y'all to a room. Something happened. Apologies.
Okay, no worries.
Niharika, I know your name.
Yes.
That's better pronunciation.
I am trying to figure out how to move you to a room now.
Oh.
It looks like I could join a room. It just, which one do I go to?
You can go to any room you're choosing.
For rooms that have less than 10?
Yes, the rooms that has less than 10s, if you can just join that room. I'm not sure why it didn't automatically push you to that room.
No worries. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to 5.
Okay.
Hey Malik,
Yes.
I got kicked out of my room.
Okay, let me,
I was in with Will.
okay.
Hi, folks. Thank you all for rejoining us in the main room. I am just going to make one adjustment. Great. So we have an exit survey in the chat. If you could please fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. It should only take a minute, and please do it while I'm speaking. We are over halfway through the year, which is really exciting. We have spoken about approaches to park equity and access, incorporating those metrics into project prioritization, your diverse and really innovative tactics for community engagement, and of course, today, how we are all doing different programming and activities to increase the sense of belonging in parks and really increasing social access in communities. So if you could please fill out that exit survey, we would love to hear your feedback and incorporate it for the last 2 topical workshops that we have coming up. If you can go to the next slide. On July 13th, we have the session on the power of partnerships for strong parks and systems change. For this one specifically, we would love for you to invite folks from other departments that you are working with, especially if it is directly related to programming or increasing park access. We really want to learn more about what has been scalable and of high impact in your cities, and also hear perhaps about some unconventional partnerships that we should be learning about and sharing. And then we also have our session in September, which will focus on healthy and resilient communities. And then we just have our next slide. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, especially to our speakers, Rhonda, Amar, Colby, Ashley, Akima. It was so inspirational to hear about all your different approaches, but also elevating the stories and the communities that you work with. I saw a lot of head nods during the presentations, but overall, it was just really great to have these specific examples to learn from on how folks are approaching the social access piece and really moving beyond the 10-minute walk. With that, thank you all for your discussions, sharing your stories and your insights. Please keep in touch, and we would love to see you again on July 13th for a session on partnerships. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.